going to see her. All right, everybody, if you are here, let me know. Say hello. I am just trying to make sure all the things are doing what they are supposed to. I see the little, there we go. I saw the Instagram was just spinning. I'm like, of course you would be because you are Instagram. That's what so anyway, hello everybody. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. I have a very dreary, rainy, foggy day here, so it's just perfect to just sit and chat with Christine. And we have, of course, Christine Ashworth here, and she just decided to write this book, just whipped it up. No, that's a lot. She's been writing it for quite a while now, and we are so glad that she did. And I am going to let her go ahead and introduce herself. So you go right ahead.
Okay. So I'm Christine Cunningham Ashworth. I am a writer. I've been writing since 2002. My first book was published, it's Paranormal Romance. It was published in 2011. And I have several books, novels, short stories, and anthologies, and all that have been published in the last blah, blah, blah years, 15, whatever years. And I have written a book about my brother, Scott Cunningham, entitled Scott Cunningham, The Path Taken, and that comes out in early September with Wiser Books.
Awesome. Now, can you tell me a little bit about the title? Like, how did you come about the title?
Oh, I didn't. I think I was calling my book the Scott Book. And I had some impossible title, and so the folks at Wiser got together and
helped you out with that.
Yeah, they brainstormed, and they sent me a title, and they said, "What do you think about this?" And I love it. Let's keep it.
Do you find that it's really hard to like title things? Because I feel like I could write all of this whole thing, and then I'm like, oh, title. It's the thing. Just read it.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of happy in a way that you didn't title, because then it makes me feel better. And I'm like, okay, good. It's not just me. I feel better.
No, it's not just you. My first book, I was expecting the publishing house to retitle it, and they didn't.
So, what's the title of it? Now you have to tell me. What is it?
Well, the original title was Demon Soul. It was a paranormal romance about 3 brothers who have demon, human, and fae blood in them, and they have to reconcile themselves to all the gifts and the problems their bloodlines give them in order to save the day and win the girl.
I love it.
So I was expecting something different. And years later, I was at a show, a book signing with a friend of mine, and she said, those titles suck. And I go, yeah, they do. And she goes, and you need new covers. And I go, yeah, I do. So she was thinking that, how about Fractured Soul? I like Fractured Soul better. And so I renamed the books. I retitled, recovered, and
wow,
back out.
That's a big undertaking right there. And can I tell you that, like, one of my favorite genres is paranormal romance. Like, that's my go-to when I just don't want to know anything about anything, and I just want to read some smut with some creatures, and it makes me so happy. It's so good. So obviously we know that you come from a family of writers, and like, so did you always just know you were gonna write, or did you think that you gonna, I mean, I know you were a dancer as well, so like, what kind of came first for you?
The writing.
Writing.
I got A's in history because I wrote so much on the essay questions that my teachers got tired of reading them. So they just gave me A's on the essay tests. I started writing little things in 4th and 5th and 6th grade, and didn't do anything with them, of course.
Yeah.
but yeah, that was always because I mean, when you're little and you fall asleep to the sound of your dad's manual typewriter going at night, every single night, it's something that's not unusual. It's not out of the box.
Right.
It's normal.
Yeah,
So
it's really good. Right. Right. I love that. And so, could you tell everybody a little bit about your dad and what kind of writing he did?
my dad would write anything. Um, he got his master's degree in journalism at Columbia University. I worked very briefly on a paper,
Mhm.
um, and then got married to my mom. And well, actually, he got married first, and then he wrote for a paper, got married, then got his master's in Columbia. And he always said he got into Columbia because they needed somebody from Oregon, and he was the only one who applied. Um, but he would write anything in order to put food on the table.
Right.
And he did. He wrote, pornography under a different name,
Right.
and he wrote car columns, and he wrote, anything that
That he could. Right.
would help pay the bills.
Right.
And in his downtime, he would write fiction.
Fiction. Yeah. And that's like a talent in itself, too, because, most writers kind of pick a genre and they write on it. And that's, so for him to be able, like, just be so able to just write about anything, I mean, that's pretty freaking cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because not everybody can do that.
Well, that's his journalism training.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, you learn how to write about
Just
anything.
right. No, that's true. That's true. But I mean, it doesn't mean everybody's always good at it. And I would love to read like the pornography stuff. Like, how interesting is that? I'm like, I like, have you, and I know you said you guys like found some books and stuff. Did you actually like read them or were you like, I can't do that?
I scanned a couple pages.
Yeah.
And
It's just whatever.
yeah, it's I mean, he absolutely dissected the Western uh, genre, and
Mhm.
that's what his first real quote unquote contract was for a Western novel called Goldwagon. And so he
Oh,
wrote a lot of Westerns. He wrote a lot of men's action series. He wrote The Penetrator. A lot of the names that uh, were on the books were actually owned by the publishing company. And so the Penetrator series, he wrote either the even or the odd ones, and a friend of his wrote the opposite. So I think my dad wrote the even ones, and Mark wrote the odd ones, but I'm not entirely sure. And that
right.
series went to 60, 70 books.
Wow.
So yeah, in his lifetime, he had over 350 novels published and over 60 nonfiction books published.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That really is. That's impressive. I mean, that's no wonder why you heard that typing all the time,
Yeah.
right? So, I think, just going through and reading it, it makes it's like I would, and I'm sure everybody kind of just wishes they got to know Scott a little bit more. And I love too how it's like he kind of just like gave you these little bits of magic along the way, and you didn't even it's like it seems like you didn't even know it was happening until
Yeah,
after the fact, right?
exactly.
I love that it's almost like he kind of knew that he needed to kind of plant these little seeds in you in order for them to grow because they were going to be needed at some point, and obviously that time is now. And it took a while for this book to really come to fruition. Can you talk a little bit about that?
It took me 4 years to write. It
Mhm.
was, um, an emotional journey. It was not one I expected to take, but when I went to a pagan gathering in Florida in 2018, October timeframe, I gave a workshop about Scott and shared some of his fiction books and the, kitchen which our grandma Hazel had made him, and, just talked about what it was like growing up with him. And
Yeah.
I had people coming up afterwards telling me, Oh, thank you so much for sharing the person behind the books he's written. We really appreciate it. You are gonna write a book about him, right? And it hadn't even dawned on me to
Right.
do that. And then when I got to thinking, I was the only one left who could, because that was in 2018. My dad had died in 2017, and my mom had died in 2007.
Right.
So, and my brother had left the house at 19 when he got married. So I was 13 at the time, Scott was 17, and I was the only one who could write about that time in our lives.
Right.
So I figured I'd better do it while I still had my memory and you know.
No, I love that. And I love too that you included like your grandma Hazel's recipe for the cookies. Like I'm totally making those. It's
He's really
happening. And I love that. And even like her name is magical. Like I love that name Hazel. Like it's just so magic. It just all of it. And just even you talk about your big family trip that you took and and I every time like I hear Florida, even you talking about Florida now, I'm thinking about when you got sick and you had the ear infection. I'm like,
Sarasota, Florida, man.
damn Florida and your ear infection. And I love that you really brought the person of Scott to it because I feel, the pagan community has this beautiful they just hold him up here and just of all the knowledge and the kindness that he just put out for everybody, but not everybody knew just Scott, and which is just as amazing, but it makes you just want to know him even more, honestly, and it makes you appreciate what he did and all of the work that he put into what he did so much more, because there's probably a lot of times that he probably wasn't feeling the best, but yet he was thinking about everybody else and what they needed and how they needed this information and how important it was for everybody. And for you to be able to add to that legacy and really show that he really deeply cared for everybody, just the pagan community in general, and helped shape it. I think that's so important. And when you kind of really started to realize how much of an impact he had on everybody, how did you process that? Like how did that feel for you?
Oh, it was scary. uh, it was, I had a few interactions with people. Some were overwhelming in a positive way, and some were overwhelming in a negative way. And, y you know, he died in 1993, so he died 30 years ago. He was 36. Um, I was wearing my AIDS bracelet, which everybody had back then, and, it was, uh it was tough. It was tough because all of a sudden I found myself thrust into this closet of of, having to be careful of who I told about Scott, because if I didn't know already that they were pagan, I had I just kept my mouth shut because I didn't need the negativity I knew that was gonna come back at me. Um, I mean, I had one woman, and I mentioned this in the book. I had one woman corner me in the elevator, and she saw the bracelet I was wearing, and she said, "Why are you wearing that?" And I said, "Well,
Oh no, you froze. Oh, there.
the bracelet I was wearing." And she said, "Why are you wearing that?" And I said, "Well."
Oops, you froze on me. Hold on there 1 minute. I'm going to give it a minute and see if it bounces back. Oops, you froze on me. Hold on there. I'm trying to see if it stayed on Instagram. Give me 1 second. I'm going to refresh this page and let's see if that will help. As if not, I may have to. Oh, I lost her completely. Oh no, I lost Christine. She's gone. All right, let's have her pop back on. I'm gonna give me 1 second. Let's see if she pops back on here. Oh, and she's right in the middle of her good story too. Let's see. I'm just telling her. All right, give me 1 second. So Christine's book will actually, it is available for pre-order now, and it will, I believe it's the release date is September, beginning of September, so like maybe a month away. I definitely recommend that you pre-order it though, because I do have a feeling it's going to probably sell out. So definitely get on that. And it is published by Wiser Books. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it on all the other things. So definitely check that out. It's it definitely gets you in the feels, this book. It's really warm and inviting, and I love getting to know their whole family a little bit better as well. So it is definitely good to have and good to get. And I believe you can get it on Amazon. As I said, it's published by Wiser. And I'm just waiting to see if she pops back on here. And then I won't have to kind of like restart everything. There she is. You're back!
Woohoo! I'm back.
Yay! Yay, internet! Thank you. Okay, so you left off where it froze is the woman cornered you in the elevator, and she asked you why you're wearing the bracelet.
Yeah. And so I said, well, my brother died of AIDS. And she goes, oh, well, you're going to hell. And so is he. And I'm like, okay. So it kind of made me very wary about who I talk to.
Yeah. No, I can understand that because, as you knew him, warm, caring person, and then somebody just to not even know anything and just come out with, I mean, I could definitely see where you'd be more reserved. And it's just a shame that unfortunately, like those bad experiences are the ones that kind of mold like how our outlook is, towards other people and,
Yeah.
even within the community. And I think it was really important for you to write this book. I think it was important for you personally to write this book. I feel like that was probably such a roller coaster ride for you. How did you do it? Honestly, like how did you get through doing that? Because I think I'd be a pile of goo.
I was undergoing burnout. 2018 was not a good writing year for me. So when I started the book, I just went, okay, what is this book about?
Mhm.
And I wrote the preface. And then I got up and walked away because I couldn't,
Yeah.
that was enough for me for that day. And then the next day I just like, what am I going to write about? What part of my life with Scott am I going to write about? So I just picked one and titled the chapter that and wrote, and until I was done, and then I couldn't. It took. I mean, I would put it away for months.
Mhm.
You know, I
Yeah.
couldn't do it on a daily basis because there was just too much.
Right.
It was too
Right.
much there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know I appreciate everything that you shared. I think it, like I said, I do think it was just really important just to get to see that side of him and really, get to know your whole family.
Yeah.
Because like I feel like I know that, I know them now and I love that. And I feel like I learned so much more about you as well.
Yeah.
And for me, I adore you, and I love that. I love that I got to know all of these little things, and because there's a lot of that stuff you don't really get to know from someone, and you like put it out there, and I just think it's very admirable. And I think too with you, I would love for you to just kind of talk about being Scott's little sister. Like, how was that for you? I mean, I know what I read, and everybody will be reading it very soon, but I want to hear how that was for you.
Well, brothers.
Yeah,
If you've got brothers, they're,
right.
they're either in your face or they're ignoring you and completely. So, um, the the one thing that I've learned since I've finished the book, that didn't dawn on me while I was writing it was that when he did draw me into these things that he was doing, the scrying with candle wax or the you know fire gazing or whatever, he was learning, and so I was learning alongside him. So he,
Yeah.
he wasn't teaching me from a teaching perspective. He was teaching me from a learning perspective.
Right.
And I in retrospect, I find that fascinating that because, I was 13, he was 17,
Yeah.
he was still at the beginning of his journey.
Yeah. He was just creating his practice,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, in that respect, it was great. I mean, he was a funny man. He was funny. And later on when, after I got married, my husband Tom is an actor, and he did a lot of musical theater. And I mean, in 1983, I always have to mention this because in 1983, when AIDS was first called AIDS, I guess, um, in about a month, maybe 6-week time span, we lost 50 people that we knew. They just so fast, and the musical theater um, world population was decimated, and so, but because my husband had been in that world, he knew how the gay dressing room banter went, and so Tom and Scott would have these conversations that were so far over everybody else's head that we couldn't, you know, and they just got a real joy out of it.
Right. Right.
So, it was Scott was wonderful. He was great. He was irritating, and he was, like any brother can be.
Right.
Um, and I'm sure I was irritating too, uh, but he was a great guy.
Yeah, no, and it definitely seems like that, and I just love the dynamic your family had too, and I love that you were just like the little sister, kind of trailing behind everyone, and I love it, and like the pictures that there are some pictures, some family pictures in the book, and you're so stinking cute. You were so adorable. I'm like, how can anyone say no to her? It's little Chrissy. I love it. I love it. And like, so what do you think? Like, how would you think Scott would react to like how things are now?
Oh, I think he'd be thrilled. Well, rewind. Um, he would not be thrilled with the political climate. I firmly believe he would be an activist of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but with all the technology that we have now, I think he would see it as a double-edged sword, which it is.
True.
I also think he would have been an early adopter, and he would have utilized all the tools at his fingertips.
Yeah.
Um, what I don't know, and gosh, I wish I did, I would just love to know what he would be learning now, because he would be, let me see, he'd be 67. Um, this year. And, how would he go back and change any of his books that he's already written? Or would he continue to write? What paths would he take at this point? What
Right.
new traditions would he study? Or what new old traditions would he study? It's hard to know. And I would so love to,
Yeah.
have had him around and seen his growth. Um, yeah, I he really, worked hard those last 2 years to
Mhm.
get the books finished and get them out, and he was so mad that he didn't have more time
Right.
that, I just
I know.
wish.
Yeah. No, I understand that for sure. Um, Now do you feel like that he kind of guides you now? On like what path you should be taking?
He definitely guides me, but not on any certain path.
Mhm.
I talk to him all the time,
Yeah. Yeah.
which I didn't used to. Um, but since I started and finished the book, I talk to him all the time, and
Right.
he answers. And I used to I used to think that it was all in my head, but,
As one usually does. That's like not an unnormal response there.
yeah, and, that I was only hearing what I wanted to hear, but then I heard a couple things I didn't wanna hear,
Yeah.
so I figured, "Okay, alright, yeah." Um,
So he was like, all right, now I gotta throw some stuff in so she actually knows it's me."
uh, so, yeah, yeah, but
Yeah,
he
and
he would never tell me, "Do this or don't do that," uh,
yeah,
in a spiritual sense, because he firmly believed that, his books were there, take what you could out of from them and leave the rest. If it didn't
yeah,
resonate with you, don't use it. I mean,
right, right. And
that's
I'd really like to know where that kind of got forgotten along the way. Especially lately, I feel like there's been so much of like, this is the way you have to do it. And then it's like, all right, well, Scott was doing this way back when. Like, when did we forget about that? So everyone should probably be revisiting Scott's books so
yeah.
that they know what's going on here.
Um,
And
Actually, I just think everyone needs to lighten up a little bit and not gatekeep. Um, it's
right.
there is no one right way to
Mhm.
do just about anything.
No, it's
Now,
true. It's
mind
true.
you, I want the brain surgeon to be doing it the right way.
Yeah, I would say anybody performing surgery on someone else is probably yes, do it by the way it's supposed to be done
But
for
if you're not playing with someone's life,
yes.
um, then do what feels right to you,
Mhm.
do what feels comfortable, um, because if it doesn't feel right and if it doesn't feel comfortable, it's something you will not sustain.
Right. Right.
And, the world needs more people who are in tune with who they are and
Mhm.
where they belong in this world. And we need more people who are willing to stand up for Earth, for the planet, for each other, and less divisiveness. I
Right.
don't think divisiveness has never helped anyone except the people on top.
Right.
Um, and that's not good.
No, it's not good. Definitely not good. And for me, like when I first started, creating my practice, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have any of those things. We had the library,
Mhm.
and physical section was this big. And of course, there was, Scott's book. So that was like my first, which I'm sure you probably heard this so many times, right? Like that was kind of my first taste into, especially the herbal and all of that. And I would and I check it out. And like you'd be on the wait list. So it'd be like 6 months before you'd see it again. So I'd be like copying it in a notebook. Sorry, Scott. And I'd be writing down because I knew I wasn't going to see this book for like another 6 months or if that. But I love, I know you added some stories from some of your friends about how they got started and the impact of him and his books on them. And also you had Nancy do some numerology. Yeah, Benabel do some astrology. And it's fascinating to see that. And it's fascinating to see how a lot of it is just it's all along the same road, and I think too that, people, if they want to honor Scott by honoring the earth, like you were saying, because that was something that was very, very, very important to him. Very important to him. And I think that's really a great way to honor him is to, either honor your own land around you or volunteer or contribute somehow. I think that's, definitely something, because like I said, like you were even just saying too, I think he would just be all over that. Like he would be all over that for sure.
I mean, even if all you do is pick up the trash that you see and put it in the nearest trash can. Yeah. I mean, it's not hard.
Mm-hmm. But no, it isn't hard. And that's, and I think that's, what you're saying too, just like he was like saying, do what you pick up what you like, leave what you don't. And it doesn't need to be complicated, because he definitely, I think he definitely seemed like, when the time was right, he loved his rituals and all of that. But when he's home with you burning incense, that's magic too. And I love that, and I love that simple stuff, because that sticks with you, right? Like, and in your book, you talked about that. What would you really like people to know about him? Besides like what's kind of out there already?
Oh gosh. Well, okay. This I didn't put in the book. He experimented with being a vegetarian. And he was vegetarian for about, I don't know, a year, I think. Maybe vegan. I'm not quite sure. I don't remember. But he said, okay, I can live with this way if I have to, but I don't want to. so then he went back to being an omnivore, like many of us are. So, it's like he was, I think he had a friend urging him to become a vegetarian. Mm-hmm. And so rather than poo-poo the idea or tell his friend, well, no, I'm not going to do that. That's stupid. He tried it. Mm-hmm. He tried it for himself. Mm-hmm. And I really think that a lot of times we judge before walking in the other person's shoes. Yeah. And trying out what it is they're talking about. Now, of course, there's not everything that we have to try out. There are some things that are so against the grain, the moral grain, that you're not going to take that step. But if it doesn't harm anyone, and it's something that you have I don't even know what I'm saying. But you know what I mean? If it's, don't just automatically judge somebody for doing something if you've never done it.
Right. And I think too, it's important to do that. I mean, even, something, like he did, like trying vegetarian to see if that was something that would resonate with him. It goes along with like everything. And I think that's the best way to gain perspective and insight. And, I think that's such an important message. And a lot of people get so stuck in their little zone of this is how it is and this is what we're doing, that they forget that there are other perspectives and there are other ways of living. And definitely, I think that I think that's a great thing to point out, is try new things and see how they are. And they're not all you're not going to love all of them, but at least at least you have something to draw from. Because when you're talking to other people, or even if you are a tarot reader or do some sort of divination and that person maybe is a very strict vegan, and you can at least draw on that experience a little bit to try to kind of guide them. So, it's so important to do that. I think I really do believe that's really, really important. And, another thing too, I wanted to point out is really just your dad's relationship with Scott. That was like, it's really just the way he took care of him, the kindness, and just even throughout, his whole life, just really like let him be who he was.
Yeah.
And, that's not always something parents do. And we know this, we know this. And I really just loved seeing their relationship in the book too. It was just such a beautiful relationship.
Yeah.
And I really think too that people that are reading it, and if you are, a young parent, like just kind of looking at that and drawing from that when as you're raising your kids, and maybe they're kind of going a different way than what you thought they would. And just, I love how it seems like, your dad just always found like a common thread with him. Even if he was doing, the writing, yeah, he's writing about the metaphysical stuff or whatever, and maybe your dad, and he was able to kind of bring him in with writing the autos, the automobile stuff, but he still kind of let him do his thing, but then he kind of brought him back and did that together with him. And, I that really, takes work to do. It's easy to just be like, no, oh yeah, whatever, go do your thing. But he wanted to really be a part of it and get to know him. And I really, that's a really, unique relationship. And I loved it. And just to see the example of that just made me so happy. Like, I just loved it. I loved it.
My dad was a great guy. He really was.
Yeah, he really definitely seems like it. And I just, I just feel like just, you didn't always see each other, like you said, and we didn't have, like, it wasn't cell phones. It wasn't all these things now, like, so
Yeah.
one phone call here and there, that was a big deal. And you caught up and then you went on. And that's how, and I think it's really, that you were all so close, but it wasn't like what it is now. And I think that people, like newer people, younger people reading it, need to notice that and recognize that it isn't like you couldn't just text somebody, you just couldn't send a picture or do FaceTime. So it did, it when you did have those times, it was just that much more meaningful.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's just phone calls. Phone calls were incredibly expensive.
Yes.
Long distance phone calls. And my parents' caregiver used to get so angry at me for not calling every day. And now, mind you, by that point, we did have cell phones. But early on, when you're raised with the fact that you don't talk to grandma and grandpa every day, you talk to grandma and grandpa at Christmas time or on their birthdays, and that was it, because it was so expensive. It becomes ingrained that you don't call people. You don't just pick up the phone and say, hey, to someone, 3,000 or 4,000 miles away. You do
True.
And even though I was only up in LA and they're in San Diego, it was still a long distance call. And that still cost money for a very long time until the cell phone stuff did kick in. But even after that, it was a hard habit to break.
Yeah.
I'm still not very good at it either. Greg and I rarely talk on the phone.
Right. No, and I think, and for me, I think because like I totally like get that, and that kind of stood out for me too. And I just thought that was, and you mentioned, and you said like, this is not, people didn't just call just to be like, hey, what are you having for dinner? And so I just thought that was like, and it made me kind of think about too, with Jay, my husband Jay, if you don't know Jay, I mean, I know you do, but I lived in Long Island and he lived in upstate New York. So we would call each other, and the phone bill would be like, in a month, it'd be like $500. And his mom would get so mad. And literally 30 something years later, every once in a while she'll bring it up. She's like, do you remember those phone bills? And I'm like, It was so true. It was, and we would write letters to each other, like literally write letters, hearts on and all that. But you did, like, that's what the correspondence was. And and people don't realize that it wasn't as, I mean, we still had those things, but it did cost money and not all of us could do that. And so that we knew, I think, I feel like that I wanted to mention that too, so that when people do read the book and they, oh, well, we had a phone call and we had, just to realize that it wasn't just a phone call.
Yeah.
That there's definitely, like, those were very special times. And because it's not how it is now, I just feel like that needs to be recognized too, that it wasn't just a phone call. Like, these were definitely, like, they meant a lot. Like, you knew that phone call, and it meant a lot. And all of the exchanges that you even talked about on there, like, to me, like, I was just like bawling, like, through this whole, like, because I just, like, and I think because I know you, and I'm just like, oh my goodness. But I think it's good. I think it's one of those things too, like, in your book, like, just talking about your experiences, your childhood, and all of those things, it kind of makes the reader think about these things, and then maybe even thinking about, what, maybe I'm going to call somebody I know and tell them how special they are. And that's really what made me think, like, that's what I left, that leaving, being done reading the book. I don't know, I'm like, my words aren't working. That takeaway, that's what I want to say. My takeaway too is just really, making sure you let people know how important they are in your life, because you just don't know. You just don't know. And taking time to, I think, record the memories. I don't think we do that enough.
Yeah, I agree.
As a site, we don't do that enough. We record, somebody being silly in the street. We record, just silly things happening day to day. But are you recording your loved ones? Are you talking to them? Are you asking them questions about how they feel? And for me, that was really a big takeaway, is just, honor those people in your life. And that's, and for me personally, that's something that I got out of it as well. Besides getting to know you a little bit better. And I love that. So, when you were done with the book and you did your editing and off it went to Wiser, like, how did that feel?
Oh, nerve-wracking. It was nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
I sold it to Wiser on proposal, even though I had already written it. Because I'm a firm believer of never proposing if the book's not written, because you don't know how long it's going to take you to write the book.
Smart.
And so once they agreed to acquire it, then I had like another 30 days to turn it in. And once I turned it in, it was like a great relief, but it was also, I kind of felt like it was a hot mess, because I had my book and then I had all the contributors stuff at the end. And I knew I didn't want it that way, but I didn't know how to mesh the two.
Right.
And so I got my first edits back just on my section, and then turned those around really fast, because I write pretty clean, which is nice. Probably because I read a lot. But it was when I got the copy edit back, that's when they had interleaved the contributions. And I thought that the copy editors just did such a brilliant job.
Yeah.
Such a brilliant job.
I agree. I really do love how it all just kind of weaves in like that.
Yeah.
No, it definitely came out beautifully. It really did.
Yeah. I mean, even though after Judica read it, my editor read it, and she said, "Oh, it's a beautiful book." You still kind of like, okay, really? Really? Because, I see the flaws. I see the memories that didn't make it in. I see the stuff that nobody else is going to see. So, but getting the feedback I've been getting really means a lot to me. That it is a beautiful book.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Own that, Christine. It is.
I'm
It is.
working on it.
Own it. Say it every day. And I am, it's going to be out soon, right? When is the release date?
I believe it's the 5th of September. The books are supposed to hit the Weiser Warehouse tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's exciting. That's exciting. That's going to be really cool to hold that in your hands. I love that. I love it. So how did you decide? Now, did you decide on the cover, like the picture that would be used, or did they decide on that?
We talked about it, and they were saying, well, we could do a photograph. I'm like, I'm not sure. No, the photograph is the right thing. Maybe we could do, like I knew, the tarot gal who does the beautiful, Jamie Sawyer. She does those beautiful, artistic renderings of people.
Yeah.
I thought we could do something like that. And I sent several headshots of Scott and said, maybe use one of these. And they did. They picked one out, and the cover artist did just such a beautiful job.
No, and I love that because that's what I was wondering, because it's very unique, and I'm curious to know how that came about, because I love that. I love that it's like that sketch look to it.
Yeah.
I can't wait to have it in my hands. I'm sure you can have it in your hands. Like, even though I already read it, I'm like, I have it, like all my books that I have to read, I have on my Kindle, but it's like not the same, right? Like,
No.
are you a physical book girl? You gotta be, because I know I am.
I'm both.
Yes.
I'm both. I will say it's very handy to read on my phone.
Yes.
And because I used to travel with a lot of books because I read very fast.
Yeah.
So having my Kindle library on my phone is just a lifesaver.
Yeah.
But I do like so I read on my phone for entertainment. I read in paper when I want to learn something.
Right.
So like Devin Hunter's books and Matt Oren's books and Nicholas Pearson's books. Those books are ones that I have in paper, and I underline and I make notes in the margins and I highlight, and I read them until they're tattered and torn, and then I will keep it. But because I can't read it anymore because it's falling apart, I'll buy another copy.
Right. Yeah. I'm very much like that too. Like when if I'm researching, or I like to have that physical book, because I'm somebody too that likes to write. So like if I when I get like the e-galleys or the PDFs and stuff, like I was going to like start printing them, then I'm like, paper earth, let's not do that. So it's easier so I just send them to my Kindle, and that definitely works out. But I am always very excited when I finally get the physical one, because then I'm like, okay, I have it. But it is. I'm definitely a person that loves to write notes and like highlight and everything. Like it's just, I think I learn better that way too when I do it that way.
I agree.
Like, for sure. I definitely do. So you, I know you were talking a little bit about doing kind of, a whole book thing in September, possibly. Is that something that you think you're going to be doing, like a release, like a book release party type thing online? Were you thinking about doing that? Like, what do you think?
Yeah, I am. I don't I don't have my ducks in a row, and I think some of them are pigeons. So
going the other way, right?
As the saying goes. So I don't have it planned yet. I'm hoping to have some of the contributors come on and chat and stuff too, but I really don't know. I don't know how to do that.
Right.
We'll see.
we'll just see what happens. Yes, yes, yes. No, and that's fine. I mean, it's you have time. It's not obviously going anywhere. So,
Right.
you know, you have time to get that all going for sure. But it is for pre-order now, right? And
Mhm.
you know, and when you drop when the internet's did its thing, you dropped off. I did tell everybody that they can pre-order it now, and I definitely recommend them doing that like now, because I really do think it's going to sell out. So if they want to get it on the
Yeah.
first round, definitely I think it's important to do that. So can you tell everybody actually where they can find you if they'd like to, you know, learn more or just keep in touch to see if you know, wind up doing a book release thing or anything like that?
Well, on Facebook, I'm Christine Ashworth, author. I also have a Facebook page. I think I'm author Christine Ashworth on my page. Um, and I'm really, really original, huh? Uh,
It's easy to find. That's good. When everyone has all these crazy names, it's hard to find, you know?
yeah, yeah. Um, and my romance writing website is christine-ashworth.com. And my other website, which needs help, and I'm getting help for it. It's kind of an ugly duckling right now. Is called mysticalmagic.me, where more of my metaphysical stuff will be. So that's where to find me. But don't email me.
No,
Email. I
no.
have over 52,000 emails I haven't opened. So if
Yeah.
if you email me, make sure you DM me on Facebook and let me know that you emailed me so I can look for your email.
Okay, I'm glad I'm not the only one though, because like
Not the
you
only
know, I like my Gmail, but I have the Yahoo, and that's literally got like over 100,000 emails that are just there, and it just gets to a point where you're just like, even if you try cleaning it out, it's like hours, and I just
yeah.
don't. I can't. I'm too spazzy. I just can't do it. I just can't do it. I can't do it. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and I really appreciate it, and you sharing your thoughts and your feelings on everything, because it's not an easy thing to do that right now, like just in general, and for you to kind of just really put yourself out there. I mean, again, I think it's brave, and I think that it's
Hmm.
amazing. I think you're amazing. And I can't wait for everyone to read the book. I can't wait to hear what everyone has to say. It's going to be so awesome.
Thank you so much for having me, Jen. It's been great talking to you.
No, it's been fun. Thanks everyone for hanging out with us today. And like I said, you can pre-order her book now. It is published by Wiser. I definitely recommend you go ahead and do that and keep an eye out. And if Christine shares anything about any goings on, I'll be sharing it as well. So you'll find it, I promise, somewhere. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging out with us, and we'll
Thank
talk soon.
you.